Hello, I am Daniel Caños, the Director of the Office of Clinical Evidence and Analysis within the Office of Product Evaluation and Quality in CDRH. The FDA is committed to actively supporting the creation and use of real-world evidence on device performance. To that end, a key feature of the MDUFA 4 agreement were the commitments to advance FDA's use of real-world evidence as part of regulatory decision-making. MDUFA's focus on real-world evidence was holistic and involved several components. First, to develop a national evaluation system for health technology, or NEST, that would facilitate use of real-world evidence in pre-market activities. Second, to update medical device reporting requirements, which are one of the post-market surveillance tools that FDA uses to monitor device performance and detect potential safety issues. And third, to consider the use of real-world data sources, if available, to assist with post-market surveillance. To discuss FDA's progress in meeting these commitments and continuing to advance regulatory science around the use of real-world evidence. Today, I will highlight CDRH's use of evidence from clinical experience in regulatory decision-making, and FDA's role in furthering the development of real-world evidence generation infrastructure. I'll be joined by my colleagues, Captain Sean Boyd and Dr. Ron Yustein, to discuss FDA's progress in using real-world data to support signal detection and other post-market surveillance activities. To accelerate the use of evidence from clinical experience in regulatory decision-making, CDRH has taken several steps to build the internal structure and subject matter capability for this work, and to advance the regulatory science around how these data are used. Specifically, CDRH created my office, the Office of Clinical Evidence and Analysis, or OCEA, in 2019. OCEA supports, engages, and advances clinical evidence generation and evaluation through policy development, submission reviews, collaboration, and innovation. We also provide policy and program support to other parts of CDRH's Office of Product Evaluation and Quality regarding clinical trials, biostatistics, real-world evidence, epidemiological analysis, and outreach in collaboration with hospitals and other external stakeholders. In addition, consistent with our MDUFA 4 commitments, FDA is collaborating with medical device stakeholders to build the National Evaluation System for Health Technology, or NEST for short. NEST has the potential to be transformative to demonstrating the performance of devices across the total product lifecycle. It aims to strategically and systematically leverage real-world evidence and apply advanced analytics to data tailored to the unique data needs and innovation cycles of medical devices. To do that, it will link and synthesize data from different sources, including clinical registries, electronic health records, and medical billing claims. Ultimately, it will help improve the quality of real-world evidence that healthcare providers and patients can use to make better informed treatment decisions and strike the right balance between assuring safety and fostering device innovation and patient access. To advance the development of NEST, in August of 2016, FDA awarded a cooperative agreement to the Medical Device Innovation Consortium to establish a coordinating center for NEST. The NEST-CC provides governance for the NEST ecosystem, oversees infrastructure building, promotes standards, and monitors progress. The FDA is an active participant in NEST-CC. The NEST-CC Governing Committee is comprised of key stakeholders that represent device perspectives across the medical device ecosystem, including members from payer organizations, regulators, FDA and CMS, academic groups, patient groups, and trade associations. NEST-CC continues to assemble network collaborators from across the clinical landscape to include clinical sites networks, research consortiums, and registries. In 2018, the NEST-CC initiated a pilot program to assess its infrastructure and determine the usability of RWE. FDA has worked with NEST-CC to establish 21 test cases that reflect the diverse medical device ecosystem, disease areas, adult pediatrics, data sources, and device classes and regulatory pathways 510K, and PMA, representing pre-market and post-market analyses. The 21 test cases will inform the stakeholder community about the usability of RWE for expanded indications, new clearances and approvals, and improved malfunction reporting. To date, all 21 NEST test cases have been launched. 5 test cases have been completed. The remaining test cases are ongoing. NEST-CC will publish a report of pilot results and commission a third-party assessment of the utility of RWE for pre-market decision-making. To help inform these efforts, on September 22nd, NEST-CC convened a public meeting to review progress and outcomes. In recent years, both FDA and NEST-CC have issued guidance and other documents to help bring clarity and consistency to stakeholders' efforts to generate and use real-world evidence. In August 2017, FDA released a guidance titled Use of Real-World Evidence to Support Regulatory Decision-Making for Medical Devices. The guidance is designed to clarify how we evaluate real-world data to determine whether they are sufficient for generating the types of real-world evidence that can be used in FDA regulatory decision-making for medical devices. Earlier this year, the NEST-CC published the methods framework defining the key components of a study protocol for the evaluation of medical devices and the data quality framework covering data governance, characteristics, capture, transformation, and curation. The FDA guidance and NEST-CC frameworks represent a good starting point for the community for use of real-world evidence in decision-making, which are works in progress. Future work can provide more clarity around how to assess or characterize the potential fit for purpose of different data sources to specific questions. Further, a roadmap covering how the active surveillance capabilities will be established and tools to be leveraged is currently under development and will be issued for public comment. Over the past few years, FDA has developed considerable experience with respect to real-world evidence. In the coming months, we are looking into ways to continue proactively sharing that expertise with the broader medical device ecosystem. In addition to CDRH's work with NEST, we have been advancing the use and ability to leverage real-world data and real-world evidence through providing training to CDRH reviewers about using real-world evidence for regulatory decision-making, supporting and advancing real-world evidence through our TPLC reviews, hiring staff with expertise in the use of real-world evidence, experts within CDRH providing support and training in areas including data quality, study design, analytic methodology, and knowledge of specific real-world data sources. Leveraging high-quality real-world data sources to replace traditional post-approval studies, and efficiently address post-market questions. Partnering with collaborators to advance the use of UDI in real-world data sources and build the infrastructure needed for registries and leveraging electronic health records and administrative claims data. Engaging in infrastructure and network development with CDR, professional societies, and payers. We are also engaged with external groups, developing policies and best practices around the use of real-world evidence, such as with CITI, AVMED, and NEST-CC. We have been tracking the use of real-world evidence throughout the center with the aim of sharing these success stories so there can be learnings across the center and with external stakeholders. In just looking at a sampling of publicly available data alone, there are over 90 examples of real-world evidence use in pre-market and post-market regulatory decisions since 2012. These examples include 18 510K clearances, 14 de novos, 2 HDEs, 20 original PMAs, 37 PMA panel track supplements, and post-approval registry studies. These examples come from the full continuum of clinical and device areas throughout all 7 offices of health technology. Over the past several years, CDRH has promoted the use of high-quality, real-world evidence, where appropriate, to inform regulatory decisions in the pre- and post-market space. CDRH worked to understand the challenges impeding the use of real-world evidence and to promote awareness of the regulatory review process. Moving forward, FDA is working to advanced evidence generation with relevant and reliable real-world evidence across the TPLC, resulting in timely access to safe and effective medical devices. Continue to leverage registries and/or other clinical evidence data sources in place of issuance of post-market mandated studies when the information or data in the real-world data source is sufficient to address outstanding questions. Further advance methods, engage internal and external stakeholders, and expand training and internal expertise with respect to the use of evidence from clinical experience for regulatory decision-making. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Captain Sean Boyd, and I serve as the Director of the Office of Regulatory Programs within CDRH's Office of Product Evaluation and Quality. As Daniel Caños noted at the outset, real-world data about the performance of medical devices comes in many forms, including through medical device reports, known as MDRs, that manufacturers, user facilities, and importers submit to FDA to report adverse events and product problems about medical devices. Today, I'm going to focus on FDA's work to gather this information through the Voluntary Malfunction Summary Reporting Program, or VMSR. I'll discuss the rationale for establishing the VMSR program, key elements of the program, and what we've done over the past 2 years to implement the program within CDRH. The MDUFA 4 commitment letter stated that FDA will establish criteria for streamlining medical device reporting requirements. That commitment included expectations that FDA would permit malfunction summary reporting on a quarterly basis, publish and maintain a list of eligible product codes to include Class 2 implantable and Class 3 devices as appropriate, and establish a mechanism to permit addition of product codes to the program. The commitment letter also recognized that FDA maintains the ability to require individual reporting from a specific manufacturer or for a specific device to protect the public health. To fulfill this commitment in 2018, FDA established the VMSR program, building upon a pilot initiated in 2015. FDA receives on the order of 2 million medical device reports per year for medical device malfunctions, serious injuries, and deaths that may be associated with a medical device. Over the past 5 years, we've seen an upward trend in the number of reports submitted to the agency for review. Regulations contained in Title 21, Section 803.19 of the Code of Federal Regulations permit FDA to grant exemptions, variances, and alternatives to the regular MDR requirements, and to include conditions as needed to ensure protection of the public health. The VMSR program is based on this provision, granting medical device manufacturers an alternative to reporting individual malfunction events under certain situations and conditions defined for the program. Summary reporting allows for the aggregation of events that are well understood or where other post-market safety activities are being conducted to address the event. Receiving certain malfunction reports in summary form also permits CDRH to focus use of its resources on safety signals for more serious or unanticipated events. In August 2018, FDA published a Federal Register notice that outlined the framework for the VMSR program. Key elements of the program include manufacturers being permitted to submit quarterly summary reports of certain device malfunctions. The program does not allow for summary reporting of death or serious injury events, and manufacturers may opt in for eligible product codes so long as they adhere to the conditions outlined in the FR notice. There are also several situations where devices, manufacturers, or specific kinds of reportable malfunctions are not eligible for the VMSR program. These situations include reportable malfunctions that are associated with a 5-day report. When a device is subject to a recall, reportable under 21 CFR Part 806 to address a malfunction, the same kinds of reportable malfunctions involving the same or a similar device must be individually reported until that recall is terminated. FDA may also determine that individual MDR reporting is necessary to address a public health issue. Examples of situations where FDA has determined that individual reporting is necessary to address a public health issue include where the device was reusable and presented a high risk of patient harm if not adequately reprocessed, where there was a high level of uncertainty regarding device risk, where malfunction events were potentially attributed to complex failure modes and root causes were not well understood, and when there were ongoing signals or other safety-related investigations for the device. FDA may also make a determination that a specific manufacturer may not participate in the program for reasons that include failure to follow program conditions or a need to monitor a public health issue. Lastly, situations where new kinds of malfunctions occur, which have not been previously reported for that device, are not eligible for the program. Of more than 7,000 product codes for devices regulated by FDA, about 5,300 are eligible and 1,700 are ineligible for the VMSR program. To aid manufacturers and the public in identifying which product codes are eligible for the program, FDA updated its searchable medical device product classification database, available online, to reflect product code eligibility status. Requests to add product codes to the program may be submitted to the MDR team within the Office of Regulatory Programs at mdrpolicy@fda.hhs.gov. When submitting these requests, we ask that you provide the firm's name, address, and registration number, along with contact information for the requesting individual, the product code that is the subject of the request, and a rationale for why the device should be considered for VMSR program eligibility. Since program inception in August 2018 through March 2020, 38 establishments across 27 firms are participating in the program. The summary reports submitted represent 134 devices or product codes and a total of more than 5,100 reports summarizing nearly 63,000 malfunction events. Importantly, participation in the VMSR program does not change the manufacturer's obligation to investigate malfunction events, and VMSR reports received by FDA are reviewed alongside any individual MDR reports for the same device type to ensure we consider all sources of information available on adverse events occurring for a particular device. FDA will continue to improve upon the VMSR program as we gather more information and develop additional experience. We have developed processes to manage various aspects of the program since its inception. Specifically, we established processes for evaluating product codes for program eligibility determinations and for ensuring participant compliance with program conditions. We will continue to monitor program participation for purposes of enhancing the program and ensuring it meets stated goals. And we will continue to improve upon outreach efforts to include communications directly with participating manufacturers and the public to promote broad understanding of the program. More detailed information on the program may be found on the web in Federal Register Notice 83 FR 40973, dated August 17, 2018, and on our medical device reporting website on fda.gov. Thank you.
Good day. My name is Ron Yustein. I am the OPEC Associate Director for Postmarket Programs. While Daniel Caños described the ways in which CDRH has enhanced our programs to support the use of real-world evidence in pre-market activities, and Captain Boyd focused on how the Center has enhanced our program to accept certain types of summary malfunction reports, I want to provide an overview of how CDRH analyzes the multiple types of post-market data that we receive to identify and respond to potential safety signals through our signal management program. But it is a critical component of our work to advance the use of real-world data in order to help fulfill our mission to protect and promote the public health. To start, I wanted to highlight a goal the Center set as part of our Medical Device Safety Action Plan in April 2018. It was to ensure FDA is consistently first among the world's regulatory agencies to identify and act upon safety signals. Setting this ambitious goal was an important milestone for CDRH. It not only looked to the future, but also illustrated the significant progress that we have made in building a modern regulatory framework that evaluates the benefits and risks of devices across their total product lifecycle. It recognized that FDA pre-market clearance or approval decisions are made at a point in time, and at that point, not all information about the benefits and risks of device may be known. New information about a device's safety or effectiveness may become available once the device is more widely distributed and used under real-world conditions and in broader patient populations than may have been studied in support of a marketing application. Likewise, changes to a device, its manufacturing process, or supply chain may lead to new safety problems. Setting this goal underscored CDRH's commitment to providing current information about the benefits and risks of marketed devices to healthcare providers, patients, and consumers. In recent years, we have undertaken multiple efforts to support that goal. These include better incorporating signal detection and evaluation into everyday staff activities, gaining access to surveillance data from novel sources, and developing automated methodologies for detection and evaluation of safety issues in large volume data sources. A safety signal is information which suggests a new potentially causal association or a new aspect of a known association between a medical device and an adverse event and might warrant further evaluation and/or action by the center. Multiple factors play into determining whether new information represents a signal. These include what is already known or expected in terms of risks and their rates, the severity of the underlying condition, the device's benefits, and the risks and benefits of alternatives. Calling something a signal does not mean that CDRH has concluded the device causes the concern, but rather that further evaluation is needed. I wanted to also point out that a signal can be limited to one product from one manufacturer or have wider implications across one or more device classes. Signals come to our attention through numerous sources, including those represented here. Some, including adverse event reports, post-market study reports, and inspection reports, are ones that come directly to FDA. And others are from data typically housed outside of FDA, including registries, scientific literature, medical societies, and state and federal partners. CDRH's signal management program was established to ensure consistent and timely evaluation and mitigation of signals, as well as to promote the feedback of important information to the earlier stages of product development and evaluation. The program is led from OPEC's immediate office, and there are safety coordinators in each OHT, or Office of Health Technology, within OPEC to lead the processes. At a high level, signal management consists of signal refinement to further analyze the issue, an assessment of whether FDA should issue an early communication, the determination of whether any mitigation actions may be warranted, the development of a set of recommendations for managerial concurrence, implementation of those actions, and the subsequent assessment to determine if further evaluation and/or actions may be warranted. Signal refinement is the process where we look to gather and analyze additional information from other data sources. It is also the time to determine if the issue applies to other similar devices or device types. Many of the sources we evaluate to refine a signal are identical to those that provide us with the initial signal. In other words, it's common for a data source to serve as a detection and/or refinement source. But for the majority of signals, we also reach out to the sponsors to obtain information from them. Due to the variability in the quality, quantity, and ability to access relevant data, the refinement stage can be time and resource intensive. Early on, we evaluate whether we should notify the public about the new information even though we have not completed our evaluation. We believe there are situations where clinicians' or patients' awareness of the information can be important in decision-making, even if it is early and we may not have yet developed specific recommendations or mitigations. We do this through our emerging signal notification process. In December 2016, FDA issued final guidance that provided transparency regarding the factors that we consider in determining whether to issue and update an emerging signal notification. In short, CDRH intends to strongly consider public notification about an emerging signal when the information supports a new causal association or a new aspect of a known association, for example, increased rate or severity of event or reduced benefit, between a medical device and one or more adverse events or clinical outcomes, and the available evidence is of sufficient strength, and the information could have important clinical implications for patient management decisions and/or could significantly impact the known benefit-risk profile of the device. To help make this determination, the team uses an assessment form similar to those CDRH has published in benefit-risk guidances and provides its recommendation to CDRH leadership. Since publishing the guidance through August of this year, we have issued 12 emerging signal notifications and 16 updates. There are numerous regulatory and/or public health actions that CDRH can take, or actions we may ask manufacturers to take in response to a signal. For any given signal, the center may decide that one, more than one, or even no action is warranted at the time. The list on this slide represents some of the more common actions and includes communications, labeling changes, and compliance actions that may be considered. This is a snapshot of more common actions taken for the 148 signals entered January 2015 through July of 2020. The number is an absolute number, not a percentage, and it is important to note that a given signal may have had multiple actions. I wanted to highlight a couple of points. First is the bottom line, which represents 40 signals, or 27% of those entered, where we concluded no action was warranted at that time. Then I wanted to highlight communications, which is the most common action taken. The number of FDA communications includes the 12 ESNs I mentioned, but does not include updates. Also, although issuance of a traditional safety communication or letter to healthcare providers is most common, we may use other vehicles, including web page postings. In addition, I wanted to note that FDA often encourages firms to issue their own safety communications. In many cases where a sponsor takes that initiative, FDA may decide not to issue one of its own. So as the Center moves into the coming years, our new OPEC structure and business model will encourage the continued integration of signal management work into our other work streams and efforts, including our shift from a more passive surveillance system to a more active one, which leverages real-world evidence. And we look forward to more interactions and collaborations with members of the device ecosystem, including the device industry, in meeting our common goals of ensuring the continued safety of medical products and, more generally, advancing the collection and use of real-world evidence to support regulatory decision-making. Thank you.